Okay, what we are going to do in this short lesson, we are just going to look at how to find the surface area of a cone, and then when we get back from spring break, we will finish this up by looking at the volume of a cone. What I want to start off with, though, is just to talk about the different properties of a cone and different parts of a cone. The base of a cone is a circle. Base of a cone is a circle. The lateral surface is all of the other surfaces that make up a cone besides the base. There are two different heights in a cone. What we call just the height is from the vertex, which is here, from the vertex of the cone straight down. Think about it going straight down through the middle of the cone to the center of the base. And this is perpendicular to the base. And then we have another kind of height in a cone, which we call the slant height. The slant height is along the outside of the cone from the vertex to the edge of the base. It's really, really important to understand the difference between height and slant height. Height goes from the vertex straight down through the cone to the center of the base. Slant height goes from the vertex along the outside of the cone to the edge of the base. The surface area of a cone, we know surface area is just the areas of all of the surfaces added together. Because we have that circular base, we have the area of a circle, plus the area of the lateral surface, pi r L. That L is the slant height. The explanation of why that pi r L is the lateral surface actually is not difficult to explain, but you guys don't know about how to find what we call the area of a sector of a circle, so I can't really get into why that is because you don't have the background knowledge. But anyway, just understand that the pi r squared is the area of your circular base, and the pi r L, where that L is the slant height, this is the area of the lateral surface, every part that's not the base, okay? All right, so we have a couple of examples here. Find the surface area of the cones. We are going to write the exact answer, which means in terms of pi, and then the approximate answer rounded to the nearest hundredth. So we'll write both answers here. Start with your formula, pi r squared plus pi r L. The only things that we need to know to find the surface area of a cone is the radius of the base and the slant height. We are given both of these pieces of information in this example, so it's just a matter of using the formula. Your radius is 4, your slant height is 6. Remember, slant height is on the outside of the cone. So let's simplify this. 4 squared is 16 pi. 4 times 6, that would be 24 pi. The exact answer in terms of pi then would be 40 pi inches squared. To get the approximate answer rounded to the hundredth, we would just take our calculators and do 40 times, and then using your pi button, 125.66 would be the approximated answer to the hundredths, and that's still inches squared. Okay. If you look at the next example, you'll see in this case we're given the height as opposed to the slant height. So what we're going to have to do in this example is a little bit of work to get the slant height to find the surface area. So let's go ahead, we can use the radius of the base. We can go ahead and plug that in, that's radical 2. But what we need to find again is that slant height. Now, if you really look at what you have here, you have the radius of the base, you have the height of the cone. If we're looking for slant height, what we have here is a little right triangle. So the way that we can find that slant height is by using Pythagorean theorem. So we would do radical 2 squared plus 2 squared, that will equal, we'll call that L, would equal the slant height squared. Radical 2 squared is 2, plus 2 squared is 4 equals L squared. This is 6 equals L squared. We're going to go ahead when we take the square root, leave our slant height as radical 6. Don't approximate that to a decimal. So we can plug in that radical 6 for our slant height and then simplify. So radical 2 squared is just 2, so this is 2 pi. Radical 2 times radical 6 is radical 12 pi. The exact answer is 2 pi plus radical 12 pi because we cannot add the 2 in the radical 12, and then this would be feet squared. To approximate this as a decimal, again, grab your calculators. Here's what I would enter. I would do the 2 times pi, hit enter, and then I'm going to add that, and then in parentheses I'll do radical 12 times pi, close my parenthesis, and that gives me that the approximate answer is 17.17 feet squared when I round to the hundredths place. Okay. Alrighty, we have 2 more examples to look at. Number 3, this is what would be the net of a cone if you kind of take it apart and look at it 2-dimensionally. We have the circular base and then we have the lateral surface spread out. We're still trying to find the surface area, so we're still going to use pi r squared plus pi rl. And you really have to think about if you put this cone back together, would this 6 be the height or the slant height? So think about wrapping that up. This would be on the outside of the cone, so that is the slant height. So we're really given everything we need. The radius of the base is here, the slant height is here, so just need to plug in what we know. So the surface area in terms of pi would be 16 pi centimeters squared, and then with your calculator you can multiply 16 by pi, that gives you about 50.27 centimeters squared. Okie dokie, the very last example that we'll look at, notice in this problem we're given the surface area. We still always want to start with the formula. And then let's substitute in what we know. We're given the surface area, so I'll plug that 75.4 in for S. You can bring down the pi. We're also given the radius of the base, so I can plug that in. And then the first thing that we're missing in our formula is the slant height, which if you look at the picture, the slant height is the y. So if you want to replace that slant height with a y, that's fine, or leave it in, it doesn't matter. And then let's use our algebra skills. So this will be 75.4. 3 squared is 9 pi plus 3 pi y. Couple of things you can do here. If you want to go ahead and multiply these terms out with pi, that's fine. I'm just going to go ahead and subtract 9 pi from both sides. And you can do that on your calculators. So 75.4 minus 9 pi gives me 47.13. equals 3 pi y. To solve for y, we need to divide both sides by 3 pi. Again, you can do that on your calculator. If you keep that 47.13 in your calculator, you can go ahead and divide by 3 pi all at once to get, that's really, really, really close to 5. So we're just going to go ahead and say that the value of y is 5. Now remember that 5 was the slant height, so you can fill that in. Then to find the height, again, we could use Pythagorean theorem. So 3 squared plus x squared equals 5 squared, and you can solve from there. And the height would be 4. So in class next time after spring break, we're going to pick up right here. You don't have any other assignment over break, but you do need to have this information, and then we're going to look at volume of a cone after break.